Hi guys, I'm Evgeny and today I want to talk to you about success. What contributes to success, how we perceive success, how people become successful, and so on. I want to base it on the book Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell. A little disclaimer here, it's not an extensive book summary, it's rather thoughts both from the book and my thoughts on the topic, and maybe it's going to be an inspiration for you to read the book if you haven't done that already. Now, let's get started. When we see successful sportsmen, winners of a certain competitions, what do we usually think of them? Well, normally we think that they are very talented, that they are very lucky to be a champion, and maybe that we would be happy to find ourselves in their shoes. To be honest, we don't really think what is behind this success. Why it happened so that a certain person ended up becoming a champion. Malcolm Gladwell starts his Outliers with a very interesting observation. If you take a look at the roster of the Canadian Youth Hockey League, you're gonna notice that the majority of the players are born either in January or in February or in March, whereas a tiny fraction of the players are born in the period from October till December. What is the reason behind that? Is astrology a real thing and Capricornus, Aquarius and Pisces really perform better at sports than everybody else? Did I say that right? Capricornus, Aquarius and Pisces. Hopefully. No, of course not. Don't believe in horoscopes. The reason is much simpler and much more scary in the same time. The cut-off for age-class hockey is January 1st, and the kids with the same birth year must compete with each other. The best players get accepted to the best teams, get best coaches, more training, and all of the other advantages. At the age of 9 to 10 years, when this usually happens, it makes a difference whether the kid just turned 9 or he is almost 10. An almost 10 years old kid is better prepared physically and simply had more time for training, so logically, in most of the cases, this kid would be chosen to a better team. And what happens then? Well, with all of the mentioned advantages in terms of coaches, training, attention, opportunities, the difference, which initially might have been a tiny one, grows exponentially. In the end of the day, the boy born in January plays for the national team, enjoying all the success and glory, whereas the one that has his birthday in December plays for the local team, thinking that, well, probably he's not talented enough, not good enough, and so on. Of course, having a birthday in January doesn't necessarily guarantee you that you're gonna become a hockey star, but it does give you an unfair advantage, leaving in the end of the day, almost half of the talented, promising kids out of the competition. And this happens not only in sports, the same situation appears to take place in the education. According to experiments, there is a difference of 12 percentile points between the oldest and the youngest kids in the 4th grade in terms of the performance in standardized tests. You might say that this is not a huge difference, but that's exactly the difference between getting accepted to the gifted program or not, between getting a scholarship or not. Afterwards, those older kids would receive more opportunities, which is gonna lead to better results, and at the end of the day, it could happen that such an arbitrary thing like the date of your birthday could determine whether you're gonna be successful or not. I personally was amazed with this information. Like, you never think about such things when it comes to the success, and it's so shocking that such a tiny arbitrary thing might play such a huge role in our life. To be clear, it's not the most important factor that contributes to success, so let's jump into the next point. It's also argued in the book that although we kind of expect that those professionals, the most successful people in their field, be it musicians or chess players, have worked hard to achieve their success, we still tend to underestimate the role of practice here and overestimate the role of talent. You probably know this magic number of 10,000 hours which you need to put into deliberate practice of this thing to become one of the best at something. It means roughly almost 3 hours per day, every day, throughout the period of 10 years. Malcolm Gladwell points out that if we take a deeper look at those exceptional persons, those outliers, like he likes to call them, we would find out that it takes them at least those 10,000 hours or maybe even more before they achieve some valuable results. Mozart has worked 10 years before at the age of 21 he started to produce something valuable. The Beatles were invited to Hamburg, Germany at 1960s to play. They weren't really successful or popular back at the time, and the clubs didn't really pay well. Moreover, they were expected to play at least 8 hours a day every day, 7 days in a row. That's an insane amount of practice. By the time when the Beatles started to achieve their major successes, in 1964, they had approximately 1,200 live performances. It's more than most of the bands have in their entire lifetime nowadays. Another example is Bill Gates. He went to a private school which had a computer class. I mean, in late 60s it was rarely the case. Bill used this amazing opportunity, and by the time when in 70s the entire computer science industry boomed, he already had more than 10,000 hours of practice in this field, and he was in the right moment and in the right time to take everything out of these circumstances. I also have noticed it in my own life. In chess, it weren't those who were the smartest or the most talented who won the competitions. It was rather those who worked the hardest to get it, who won it in the end of the day. When I entered the university in Germany, it was a completely new level for me, and at some point I had my doubts whether I'm smart enough, I'm good enough for it. But soon enough I realized that it's the amount of hours that I put into the studying, that I put into the preparation for the exams, that define whether I'm successful at studies or not, whether I get good grades or not, whether I understand the material and acquire new practical skills or not. Of course, you should be also pretty lucky to get the opportunity to master a certain skill for 10,000 hours free of distraction, stress, thinking about the fact that you need to earn some money so you can eat something and so on. That's the moment when luck comes into play. So it's an insane amount of practice plus the right opportunities at the right time that contribute to success. In the Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell brilliantly points out how important this the right moment in time is. 14 out of 75 richest people in the recorded history were born within a period of 9 years in the 19th century in one country, USA. What is the reason for that? Maybe it's astrology after all. No, it's never astrology. The reason is when those people achieved the age when they were ready to perform an action, to achieve something in their life, it was the moment when one of the most significant transformation in the entire history of America happened. The railroad firms and the Wall Street firms were built. The similar pattern appears to be in the case of software development, where the most famous guys are born in the period between 1953 and 1956, and they were about 20 years old when the industry boomed. 20 years is the age when they were already ready to perform some actions in their life, but at the same time they were still open to everything. Because most of the older guys back at the time thought, well, it's such a weird thing, those computers, it's so complicated, nobody is gonna use it, so they were resistant to new technology. I mean, if Bill Gates would have been born 5 years earlier or 5 years later, most probably he wouldn't be that successful. If you still think that talent plays a big role in achieving success, here is another example for you. In the middle of 20th century, Louis Terman, psychology professor from Stanford University, has conducted a very interesting experiment. He wanted to find young geniuses with a very high level of IQ and then track their life, how they are going to perform in the future. They expect them to be famous, successful, win the Nobel Prizes, and so on. And it still happens today that with the help of some standardized tests, people are accepted to some gifted schools, universities, some programs, and so on. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, the experiment failed. People with a higher IQ indeed were more successful than those with a lower IQ, but only up to a certain point, an IQ level of 120. It's a threshold here. A person with an IQ of 125 is not less likely to win a Nobel Prize than the one with an IQ of 170. In fact, two persons which Lewis Terman rejected from the experiment due to a low IQ ended up eventually winning the Nobel Prize. To win a Nobel Prize, you should not only be smart, you should be creative, you should invent things, and of course, you should work hard, as you already know. It's like in basketball, you should be tall to be successful in this sport, but you should be only tall enough. At some point, maybe 185 or 6 feet, it doesn't really matter anymore. The main point here, which I wanted to share with you and that I realized, is that success is far away from what we are thinking it is. Thinking that you are not gifted enough for achieving something, you are not smart enough, or I guess you can continue the list, you are not good enough, whatever, just doesn't make any sense. It's a process of deliberate practice, plus some luck in the right moment that allows you to make it. Of course, you really should love the thing that you are doing to be able to spend such an amount of time on it. I'm pretty sure that without a passion, genuine passion, success is almost never possible. As for the luck, obviously you can't practice it, but I would argue the more you try, the luckier you're gonna be. I hope this video was useful for you. You know more now about success, what stands behind it, and maybe you're inspired now to read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. The book contains a lot of powerful insights, has a great number of fascinating examples, and it basically opens your eyes about what success really is and what stands behind it. Put your thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to get more educational content, and see you later. Capricornus, Aquarius, and Pisces. Capricornus, Aquarius, Capricornus, Aquarius. The last time. Standardized.